Welcome to the Clean Power Hour Live. I'm Tim Montague, your co-host. Today is August 21st, 2026. It's starting to be fall here, and that's a lovely thing. And I want to welcome my co-host to the show, John Weaver. It's good to see you, brother.
Living in New England has taught me how to make use of the word fleeting in
Fleeting?
fleeting, as in the fleeting summer warmth. You just said that fall coming made you think of that, and just reminded me of how New England summers go by so quickly versus in Florida, where summers are 9 months long. And so, yes, the evenings have been cooling off and makes me go, oh my gosh, summer's going away. So it's a New England thing to notice summer going away. It doesn't happen in Florida. In fact, you hope for it to go away just a little bit.
Yeah, there's a crispness in the air in the morning and the evening, and our days are still quite warm. We're having a nice streak of warm, sunny weather for the next week. It's sunny and 80 or 84. And I picked the right time to go to Norway, John, because I went to Norway last week and it rained every day here. We got 12 inches of rain in, I think, 7 days.
Wow.
So there's flooding in the farm fields, but it's not catastrophic. It's just a lot of moisture. And I had a lovely trip with my son Finn and his girlfriend Kara, and we went to Oslo, Tønsberg, and Ålesund, Norway, all very different but historic places. And I, most importantly, got to ride on an electric ferry, which I'm going to show you a photo of. What have you been up to, though, brother?
Building solar.
What a concept.
Yep, that's what we do every day.
That's so boring, John.
What about batteries? I do some batteries too. Company, I'm wearing a nice shirt and nice slacks today because I'm going to Newport, Rhode Island to hang out with a couple of employees that are in town. We have an intern, Zach Powell, whose his last day is today. He's a master's degree MBA student at University of Providence, and he was working for the sales team this summer. And so we're going to go down as a team and give him a pat on the back, say thanks a lot, and buy him a beer. And in Newport, Rhode Island, beautiful place. So,
and what's next for him?
He's going to finish his master's degree at Providence, and then start to think about what's next, because he just graduated with his bachelor's, and now it's time to move on.
Yeah. So
this is that. This is what you were riding.
Yeah, this is the Geiranger Fjord 3. We went to the Geiranger Fjord, which is a very cool place, and we rode on this ferry. It carries about 100 passengers, and you can see. I'm going to give you a close up here, but in the back of the boat is three big batteries. They just sit back there like motors might on a regular boat, and it's a lovely thing because the boat is quiet and there's no stack pumping out air pollution that you might breathe if you were standing on this deck, which we were for a good portion of the 3-hour ride from Geiranger back to Ålesund, where we were staying. And it was a very lovely trip. And Geiranger Fjord is a World Heritage Site, so they actually have some very strict environmental regulations. And I read a plaque that said by 2032, all ships visiting the Geiranger area have to be carbon free. So they're incentivizing the electrification of transportation in Norway. As you know, John, Norway is one of the furthest along countries in the world. I think 80% of new car sales are pure EVs. And you see a lot of Teslas, but you also see a lot of Chinese EVs. And that was a difference from a few years ago. I saw a few Chinese EVs, but now I saw a lot of Chinese EVs. So watch out for those Chinese EVs. They're very good and very popular. I also rode on the Chinese electric bus, which was quite good, although the seat wasn't the most comfortable. Here's a close-up of the batteries, and that label there just says 8,000 kilograms. So yes, it is very heavy. And then I did look at the label, and each one was like 900 kilowatt hours. So we're looking at 3 megawatt hours of batteries, and that gives the ferry enough range to make it from Geiranger back to Ålesund with 100 passengers. I'm no expert on, is it realistic for a bigger ship? I could show you maybe a bigger ship like this, the Hurtigruten, which is a small cruise ship. This still runs on, fuel oil, and you see it has a smokestack. Eventually, these boats will get electrified, right? This is like a medium range boat. It goes up and down the coast of Norway. I took this boat several years ago, maybe actually several decades ago now. And that's a lovely ride when the sun is shining. But anyway, cool trip to Norway, and I highly recommend it if you want to check out the future. As I like to say, you can, as an energy professional, you can visit the future, John. I don't know if you knew this, by going to Northern Europe or to China, although you have been to China yourself.
I've seen it there. Yeah, it's what's neat about all the electric stuff happening in Norway is that it's backed by, 90+% hydroelectric. So
that's correct. Yeah, their grid is already green with hydroelectric power. They have a lot of waterfalls and lakes. And so it's ironic, and it's a double edge, right? Because Norway is wealthy because of fossil fuels. They have a huge oil industry in the North Sea, and they've built up this sovereign wealth fund, which is some trillions of dollars, and they use it for public benefit. Although they're very conservative. We had a dinner with one of my family members there. And he said they can only use 3% of the sovereign wealth fund to, for the betterment of society. And they build roads and bridges and hospitals and schools, and they do have free healthcare and free education, which I think is a very smart thing to do. But no place is perfect. I choose to live here. I could live in Norway. I did live in Norway for 3 years, and it was very interesting. But I prefer the lifestyle ultimately that we have here in America, and I hope that we can hold on to that.
I think
one interesting factoid, I guess, around electrification, electrification of transportation is happening partially in Northern Europe because fossil fuels are expensive. In Norway, gasoline is $8.50 a gallon, not $4.50, which we have now experienced here in Illinois, which is horrendous. Oil prices have gone up in the U.S., right?
And Norwegian prices would make you go nuts.
Right. And so what you would do if you were driving a vehicle in Norway, you would buy an EV because it's much more economical to do that. Here, it's painful, but it's not quite painful enough that everybody goes, oh, I'm getting an EV. Now, there is a resurgence in especially the used EV market in the U.S. because of Donald Trump's war in the Straits of Hormuz, which in my opinion is just a food ticket to the fossil fuel industry. It's just a way to give them profits, but I don't know. I don't really know. And I know they ostensibly say, well, we're stopping them from being a nuclear power and dropping the bomb on us, but I don't think that's a legitimate threat.
Probably not.
So anyway, when fossil fuels are expensive, you do get that is an incentive. Just like if electricity is expensive, you have an incentive to go solar or solar and battery now.
Well, actually, if we want, we could cover an article about how electric trucks are picking up in terms of sales across Southeast Asia because the price of diesel's through the roof. And, that's great, in my opinion. Sorry for...
let's do it. What's the story?
All right, well, let's just, here, I'll share it right here then. So, all across Asia, let's see if I can share my screen. Share screen. Let's pick a window. Over here to Reuters. So what's occurring is that Reuters has put out an article saying that the war in Iran has been a boon for Chinese e-trucks and an export surge is occurring. And what we can see is that in March, 2,500 trucks were exported. It was showing an increase. It was, it was showing an increase. I mean, it was down from the end of the prior year, so it wasn't like peaking. But now, the number of trucks exported in June was 5,400. And compared to June of last year, it was 1,700. That's 3-ish, 3,000 plus 21, 51. That's 300% what was exported last year. And it said diesel prices are up 48%. Here, it's right here. Diesel prices are up 48% in Sri Lanka, 57% in the Philippines, while only 15% higher in China. In the US, it's up like 50%, maybe not 100, but I know that shipping some solar panels from Texas to Massachusetts cost twice as much as it did a year ago. And so here's where you can see where all those trucks are going. Southeast Asia is just taking in a massive number of trucks. And they're dealing with this diesel issue a lot. And those markets are tight markets. Now, I like this line right here. I wanted to point this one out. Before the oil prices rose, buyers in these countries, these Southeast Asian countries, might have needed 28 months to recoup their EV truck investment. Now it's 18 months, less than 2 years, whereas before it was, 2.25 years, 2.25 years. So now we're at a year and a half, and that means it's just dropped 50%, more than 50%. At 50% would have been 14 off. That would have been, and not exactly 50%, but almost a 50% drop, increase, almost a doubling of the ROI increase is actually how it would be said. So, a little bit of war sucks, but I'm sorry, everybody. However, it's leading to trucks that are EVs. And if we can push, everything I read says that the low-hanging fruit, once it becomes economic, is going to be trucks, because they're going to be like 50% of transportation, 70%, and not necessarily of mileage, but of actual fuel use, because of how heavy each one of those trucks are. Like electrifying one EV truck is worth like 20x a car, because an EV truck runs 24/7. A car runs 5% of the day. And they're bigger trucks. So it's like, because they're used.
Commercial truck.
Commercial truck. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah, I'm talking big trucks. And that's what this article was on. It was on commercial vehicles.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it makes sense. That I think medium range commercial vehicles will be some of the early adopters, those fleets. If I was a FedEx or an Amazon, I would be electrifying my fleet. I know Amazon is an investor in Rivian, and you do see some EV Rivians around. I don't see a lot here in Illinois, but I saw one up in Wisconsin this summer. And
regularly in Mass. And the first one I ever saw was in Chicago.
Okay. Yeah, I don't go to Chicago enough. I will be going to Chicago September 9 and 10 for RE Plus Midwest. So if you're going to that show, reach out to me. I'd love to see you and have coffee or a beer or just meet on the trade show floor. I'm also going to be doing some filming. If you're listening to this and you have a good story to tell about the Illinois solar and battery market, I'm making a documentary about that. So reach out to me.
Cool.
And with that, let's move on to some other news, John.
So you want to do funny news or two pieces of slightly news?
Let's do some funny news. It's Friday. I am in a good mood. I'd like to hear some good news.
All right. So funny news is pachyderm management. I'm sure you have.
I should know what a pachyderm is, but what is a pachyderm?
You're going to find out very shortly. It's a very smart animal. It's a neighbor of ours. They get upset sometimes if you don't manage your cables. I'm going to point that out. So this is a cable management story, Timothy. Okay. Oops. Oh, there's some music. Now,
pachyderm is an elephant. Yeah.
Yes. And so if you don't manage your cables, the pachyderm will knock over your system.
That is too funny.
If you pay attention early on, you see that right there? The foot? The cable is around the foot of the baby elephant.
Oh.
That's the mom elephant. And she's like, hey, what's up? She's stepping on the cable, and then she's like, all right.
I'm pissed.
All right.
You're in trouble.
All right.
Wow.
So, pachyderm management, Tim. That's so bollards and cable management. And then, I don't know, how did they attach that unit to the ground? It looked like there were no bolts. It looked like it was just sitting there on the pad. So you definitely got to bolt your stuff down. Um, uh,
Lesson learned. Bolt your EV charger down to the ground. Yes, that sounds good.
case of pachyderms specifically, just
Oh, that was
hell.
cool. I will have to say, on one of the other electric ferries. I rode on a smaller ferry, but it was a car ferry that was electric, and I saw the charging system, and it was semi-robotic, and it had like a robotic arm that lowered down, and then it fell into like a funnel so that it could
Cool.
find its way to the port. Because with a big, I mean, the cables were like this fat, and there were 4 of them, I think.
Oh wow, that's heavy. Yeah.
Now this was especially, I mean, the reason the charging was so important is because it's like a constant back and forth. That ferry's just going boom, 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 boom.
Makes sense.
But yeah, all right. Well, that was funny.
Yep.
Pachyderm management.
So, first 2 pieces of news are challenging ones.
Foreign inverter ban.
Foreign inverter ban, man.
Yeah, and I'm curious, has the dust settled on this yet? Because I've heard a lot of conflicting and confusing news. I mean, this is Ryan. I'll put this on screen. This is Ryan's story from July 28th, right after the full ban was announced. But well, what's the basic story?
So basic story is that the FCC, which is a whole different arm of the government, is now stepping into solar inverters, and they're banning inverter and communication devices against everything in the United States from China origination. And it's not even China. It's just foreign. Like, notice that top word, foreign produced. So everybody, any inverter that's manufactured outside of the United States has now some complexities. Now, there were a lot of questions about the nuance of this. Is it are existing approved inverters okay? Could a firmware update invalidate your approval? Are inverters, there are just a lot of questions that we don't know answers to. At least I haven't seen the technical updates and guidance on it. But, it seems like there's any new inverter right now isn't coming into the country. It seems like a new inverter, completely new out of the box inverter that hasn't been UL or FCC approved. And
so if you've safe harbored a bunch of inverters that are sitting in a warehouse somewhere in the US, you're good.
Maybe. For instance, what if one of those inverters got updated with firmware? Is one of the questions.
Yeah.
The question is of risk of countries that have a desire to mess with our grid, to hack stuff and whack it up. I mean, there's a neat story I just read about the Russians hacking the Polish grid recently, where they just went in via open password ports and started messing with stuff. So that's what this is about. It's about hypothetically protecting ourselves against grid attacks. And then a firmware thing could open a hole, is what I'm hearing smart people say. This is just a discussion, and so I don't know. Maybe not. And for instance, there's another layer. Christian wrote, somebody whose name I'm not allowed to say because he's not commenting publicly, but smart people, and they've even put out opinions on this, I think. The FCC doesn't technically approve an inverter. They approve subcomponents. So does this apply? Does it not apply? Do they now have to reapprove every inverter? Because technically no inverter ever has been approved. So it's an unknown. And the way you started off talking about it, saying, do we have any real updates, is really a great question. I haven't seen much. I haven't read personally any of the updates since the initial release and the initial analysis. So I only have one update, which is sort of kind of an update. WoodMac says that by next year, we could be making 60 to 70 gigs of inverters domestically, which is surprising and interesting. But, right now I'm buying domestic contact inverters.
By next year?
By next year, dude.
Wow.
Yeah, I did not something I expected. But I will say I've been buying domestic content inverters, Enphase, Solar Edge, to meet that 10% tax credit thing. And
Yeah.
I know the effect on me is limited, but we're a small CNI guy. This is really about the 40 gigawatt utility scale market. And I have less insight into that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, of course, last year, right, with the OBBB, we got VIOC, foreign entities of concern, and that did start a train rolling that gave developers and asset owners more caution around products made in China, North Korea, or Russia. And of course, in the solar space, that means China mostly. And so that has hurt companies like Chint Power Systems. Thank you, Chint, for being a major sponsor of this show and platform. And we'll see where the dust settles. It certainly is incentivizing, John, domestic manufacturing. And that's a good thing, basically. If America can get its act together and become a manufacturer again, like, we are a service economy largely. We are no longer a manufacturing economy. There was a time in the 50s, 60s, and some of the 70s when we really were, but we are making solar panels, and maybe we'll make inverters. SolarEdge, as you said, is making inverters. There's also Selectria. They have a factory in Illinois. So I was talking with an installer about a project in Michigan that hopefully will come out on the pod, where they got racking made in Michigan. They used First Solar modules from Ohio and then inverters from Illinois by Selectria. So that's kind of cool that you could have a solar field made with components all made in the Midwest. And will the other major, Chinese companies like SunGrow, et cetera, and Chint reshore or onshore manufacturing? That's TBD. There's a lot of pivoting going on. You see how Canadian Solar has rebranded and is trying to keep up with foreign entities of concern and domestic content requirements, right? And rebranding themselves as CSI.
CSI Power.
CSI Power. So this is a very dynamic situation, I would just say, and the dust is not settled, but it is interesting. And my concern, John, is that it creates more friction for the renewable energy industry. OBBB did create friction. It didn't create as much friction as some people thought initially. So there has been some good news lately that, pre versus post OBBB and what is the impact. It's not as gruesome as some anticipated at first, but it is reducing the amount of solar and wind being installed in the US. And, we want to make the energy transition. It was noteworthy for me returning to Chicago, John, when we got to the airport and we walked out to get picked up by Kara's lovely mother. Thank you, Kara's mother, for picking us up at the airport. The air pollution at the airport was horrible. And I never noticed that in Scandinavia. Like, the air was much cleaner at the airport. And that's because they're running on electric trains and cars much more than we are. And we are definitely creating a lot more air pollution, and that's not good for human health. And we forget that. It's in the background, but fossil fuels kill 6 million people at least a year globally. It's a huge, and I heard an interesting analysis about nuclear and yeah, nuclear accidents are dangerous. Fukushima, it
also kill like 100 Chernobyls every year.
Right. So the relative impact on human health of the nuclear industry is much smaller than the fossil fuel industry, and we need to keep that in mind. And so, from a safety perspective, nuclear is relatively safe compared to burning natural gas and oil.
I don't even want to say relatively. It's very safe. I mean, we've had a couple of issues, but I don't know. We could talk about that for a long time. I like nuclear. Nuclear is cool. All right.
Yeah, Chernobyl was closer to a much bigger disaster than Fukushima was, actually. If they'd had a true a more severe meltdown than they had, like China syndrome, right? If the nuke overheats and melts down to where it's super hot, and then there's like a reverse explosion of hot steam the impacted area could have been much bigger than it was. It was big. I went to Norway in 1986 for the first time, and I was celebrating my 40th anniversary of going to Norway when I went to Norway this summer. That summer, they had to cull the reindeer herd in Norway because of the fallout from Chernobyl. Culling in, as in killing them and then just bulldozing them into the ground because they didn't want humans to eat the meat. So anyway, I digress. We should probably move on.
I mean, yes. Concurrently, 6 million people died last year. And this
that's
year,
and that's yeah, and that's why that's one of the best reasons to make the energy transition.
Yeah. Right now, tens of thousands of people are on death's doorstep right this instant moment, and they're going to die shortly. And a few tens of thousand others are joining them right now. So let's go to the next article where we increase tariffs on the price of solar panels.
Section 232 may offer limited prospects for U.S. solar wafer capacity by Will Norman in PV Tech. PV Tech. Okay.
PV Tech.
I'll get this on screen.
It's in my second favorite magazine land. Them in solar power world, I got to put them as number 2 because PV Mag, of course, is number 1.
Okay. So yes, Section 232. What is Section 232? All
right. So first, Section 232 came out last week. We've been waiting on it all summer, maybe even since the spring. And it's a it's a new tariff on everybody. Every solar panel coming into the United States, minimum price, 38 cents. Every solar cell, I believe 22 cents. If you scroll down a tiny bit, every wafer, probably going to be in the 14 cents. Yeah, 14 cents a watt. And all of this is now a new tariff added onto everything from anywhere in the world, not just China. And this is because you don't get premium access. Sorry, Tim. I'd pay for that. I'd pay for a lot of magazines. I like that. But the whole world, and this is to combat, and I understand it, this is to combat the Chinese technique, which I actually, in hindsight, think is great, where they make new factories around the world so they can then export to the United States products and other markets. And I love it because
can you give a concrete example?
Sure. Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Taiwan, there's 4, Vietnam and Laos. Those 4 countries were all directly invested in by major Chinese manufacturers, and then they built factories and started exporting to the U.S. And there's others. Now they're
as a way to avoid tariffs, right?
As a way to avoid tariffs for products directly exported from China, so mainland China. Yeah. Now, what I like about this is that we're now dispersing solar expertise globally. Of course, the U.S. is still pissed because our manufacturers are being undercut by state-driven incentives, but we're dispersing solar expertise around the world. I like this because that's just that knowledge. We want it to proliferate, and it's beautiful. So cool. We had an effect of moving the solar manufacturing industry outside of China, and now it's in at least 10 or 20 different countries around the world, with India coming on as just being awesome. I mean, I share an India story every other show just because they're now the number 2 market for solar, and they're now the world's number 2 solar manufacturer. They're going to have like 250 gigawatts of manufacturing capacity shortly.
Who's that? You broke up there for a sec.
Oh, India. Sorry. So
India, what company? What company?
No, the country of India. You know,
India's going to have 250 gigawatts of solar manufacturing capacity.
Like next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can share that. We could add it to the thing if we want.
And the U.S. is going to have 50 or 60 gigawatts?
60, just modules too. With India, it's cells, which is much more valuable than just modules. And they're moving toward wafers and moving toward poly.
But so these tariffs on solar cells that were just announced, the theory is that it will incentivize onshoring of solar cell manufacture in the U.S., right?
That's the theory. And this article, it says that wafers, though, because of the dynamics of the pricing and the cost and how they're being tariffed, this is the second party I've heard say this statement that it may not incentivize wafers and poly, and it may mess up the market because they haven't structured this well. So at a minimum, the price of our modules are going up. And it just like the prior tariffs, which have all been horrible before the IRA, and they didn't drive new manufacturing, these new tariffs might not drive manufacturing yet again.
That's the thing. It's super complicated, and it's a very gross tool. It's a club when you need a scalpel. So my take is it's just more friction for the clean energy transition, which is ultimately the Trump administration's goal. To continue to prop up the fossil industry, which already has plenty of subsidies, probably to the tune of 10x what we subsidize the clean energy transition. But that's the way it is, right? We have a mob boss in Washington who wants to support his rich buddies, and the fossil industry is behind him 100% and donating to him and enriching his family. And until that administration is gone, we're going to have that problem. But we have 2.5 more years, right?
Yeah, plenty. Yeah. All right.
Get used to it. Get used to it. But solar, the good news is solar and batteries are unstoppable. And the factoid that I love that was pointed out on the Prof G pod the other day, he interviewed an expert whose name escapes me, a woman from Scotland. She had a lovely Scottish brogue too. But she pointed out that internal combustion engines are 80% inefficient. So 80% of the energy that in your ICE vehicle, in my ICE vehicle, you drive an EV, you're one of the good ones, John. I'm still one of the bad ones. In my internal combustion engine vehicle, 80% of the energy goes to heat and friction. In an EV, it's reversed, and 80% of the energy goes to moving the vehicle. And so EVs are not only cleaner, but they're much more efficient. And so as we see this expansion of the need for energy with AI, compute, electrification, blah, 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 right? It is going to be healthier and safer and more efficient when we move away from fossil and biofuels like corn to ethanol. Super inefficient. 40% at least of our corn crop goes to ethanol, thanks to the farm lobby, which is super powerful. It was ironic. I was having breakfast with a gentleman who is a farmer here in Illinois, and he had no idea why the corn to ethanol was such a thing in Illinois, but it's called money in Washington.
It's a challenge. All right. Let's move back to good stuff, Tim.
Okay.
How about a 30% efficient solar panel that might be on sale in like a month or 3?
So, okay, this is in PV Magazine. I can actually get this to show on screen. That's good.
I know the author of this story too. He's a good guy.
Well, tell us the actual name of the story and the author.
All right. So the name of the story is, here, let me open it up. The world's most efficient solar panel goes on sale later this year. And it was written by a very handsome fellow named John Fitzgerald Weaver.
I love it.
And what's happening is that this is a 4T perovskite-silicon solar panel. And what 4T means is that perovskite is in the glass, and it wires itself to a standard, regular, whatever you want, at least with this company, solar panel.
So they're making perovskite glass that you can just bond on top of a regular PV module.
They're replacing the standard glass, though. So it's not just like smacking it to a module. They're just, your standard glass. It's just being switched out. That's it.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's cool. What is the name of the company? This is Tandem PV. Oh.
Tandem PV.
Yeah, I had them on the show a couple years ago now.
Yep. I just had a great interview with their CEO. So what's occurring is that they are shipping right now what they would call, you might want to scroll down, you can see it, but they're shipping right now what one might call production comparable, production ready modules. They're moving through things. It's moving through the final things, the details. But right now, what's happening is that the final modules that are close, super close, is the way the guy's pitching me, Scott, super close to being the last product. What they would say is that later in the fall, he wouldn't say summer. He pulled off the summer, but in the fall, he expects to be able to selling for revenue modules that will be deployed. And he expects these modules after a certain amount of time to be defined as bankable. And then here's the key. This is what everybody at Tariffs says, and I should have started off with this. The degradation value that he expects to put into his contract is less than 1% a year. He also states that right now they have modules that have been deployed for almost a year that haven't degraded at all. So they think they have worked and fixed the truest of the degradation issues. Now, we don't truly know because a 1% degradation, if you're thinking about, here's a new thing for us to think about, Tim. I realized this a few months ago. So let's say I have 2 solar panels. One degrades at 2%, and I don't know if this math is correct, but just for the sake of our conversation, one degrades at 2%, one degrades at 0.2%. Add that up, that's 2.2. Does that mean our average degradation is actually 1.1 for 30 years? I don't know exactly, but maybe. So I'm wondering what we're going to see when a real perovskite-silicon tandem comes out, and they say degradation is X, because that X number is for the whole module. But the silicon is going to go slower than the perovskite, is my assumption. So I don't know what this means yet, but it means something. And smart people with spreadsheets are calculating it. And in about 3 months, somebody's going to have it in the field, and we're going to get a picture of it. And this guy, Scott, we had a great conversation, good 30 minutes. He said, listen, man, we're looking to get our knowledge out there and show off our gear. So he's going to be reaching out to say, the solar power world, maybe you should give him a nudge. Give him a call fall. Say, hey, we want to get you on the show after you've shipped your first revenue generating module. And then we need to send them a case of wine from Sonoma. Like,
what is Scott's last name? I can't remember.
Scott Wharton.
Scott Wharton?
Wharton, I think, is his name. It's in the article. Let's check it out.
I don't think so.
All right. Wharton. Yep.
Oh.
CEO Scott Wharton.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Maybe they have a different CEO than they did when I interviewed them a couple years ago. Or I'm thinking of a different company. I can't keep all these, one of the frustrating things is that expression tandem, right, is actually a phenomenon also. It's like calling your company automobile or combustion. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So perovskites are cool. They're interesting. We had Joel Jean on the show, right? And
Swift. That's from Swift.
Swift. Yes. Swift. Is it Swift? It's not Swift Current, but Swift Solar.
Is it Swift Solar?
There's Swift Current Energy, but yeah, Swift Solar.
Yeah, Swift Solar.
And I think they're making a 3T product, right?
Maybe 2T, I would think, but I don't know.
Oh, maybe it's 2T. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think
you of all people, John Weaver, should know this. You're such a geek for solar PV.
I am.
Does perovskite qualify as PV though? It's not, right?
Photovoltaics, yeah. Photovoltaics, the science of photons and electricity. So
yeah, but thin film isn't PV.
Yes, it is. It's photons and electricity.
It's not crystalline PV. Yeah, okay.
Correct. Photovoltaics has little to do.
So is perovskite crystalline or different?
Is it a crystal? It's a rock.
Because it's kind of analogous to thin film.
It is. Without a doubt, it is. It's more of a spray-on product. It's absolutely a thin film versus, say, silicon rock. But yeah, good question, Tim. Very good questions. We're gonna have to learn some new stuff. Hey, you want to talk about some batteries now?
All right, it's about time. More batteries.
Enphase is releasing a C&I battery, and I think I'm going to put it on a site. I need to get my guy, Bob Montanaro. He's my Enphase sales guy. He's awesome. I've known Bob for a long time. Bought my first commercial inverter from him down in Miami. But Enphase is putting out an AC coupled 80 kW unit with 40 kW of power. And I like this unit because I'm doing work on smaller C&I locations, and they need some demand charge management. And so I'm interested in this product. And so that's why I liked it. Commercial batteries are so expensive, and I don't know if it'll work. But Illinois, your state, Tim, a project that we're working on, actually. So thank you for connecting me with, is it A360 or 360 Electric?
360 Electric, yeah.
So thank you for connecting us with 360 Electric. They're working with Ameren to get us an inspection with the utility at our site. And this site, the customer is talking about demand charge management and solar. And we're thinking about doing Enphase there because the customer wants to pay the extra for domestic content. They know the rough price adder, and they really like the simplicity of an Enphase install at street level because all the inverters and the extra gear is up on the roof. And so street level, you only have 1 or 2 boxes. So they're aiming for it. And with that, this is just a new battery. Commercial batteries are great. Every time I see one, I get a little psyched. There's a SunGrow battery that's a 125, 250. I would have loved to be more involved with, but now I'm worried about FIOC and all that stuff. So I don't know where to go with these smaller size C&I batteries. So seeing this just made me get a little excited.
And is Enphase making batteries, though, that qualify as domestic content?
I have no idea yet. However, I do know that the incentive is separate. So you can have your solar incentive get domestic, and your battery can just be standard 30.
Yeah, it says the C80 is expected to be U.S. Made at U.S. facilities and be FIOC compliant. FIOC compliant, ironically, doesn't guarantee domestic content, right? So
correct. But read the second sentence. So if you look at it, it says certain projects eligible. So what that really probably means is that if your project has everything else strongly domestic content, this at a lower percentage, sort of like the way we do modules from some groups, would work and make a sense and figure it out. So we'll see. So I like it.
Do you do a lot of projects with Enphase inverters?
Not a lot, but we've been doing more recently because of domestic content. Historically, we had been doing a lot of SMA, very simple, prior Solar Edge plus SMA with rapid shutdown requirements depending on the project. We had a lot of Selectria, Yaskawa, but recently we've been moving toward Enphase. They have some characteristics which are really nice. Again, all the hardware being on the roof. We're doing a apartment complex, and we would have had 3 or 4 Solar Edge inverters street level because of the sizing that we would have had to been 2 or 3, and that's just a lot of gear. So there's pluses and minuses for each system, but I'm looking forward to an Enphase. That's pretty great. Yeah,
and that's on a commercial project, right?
That is, yes. Well, that's going to be on the project you're helping me with, Tim.
Multifamily,
low-income housing. Yes, sir. Hey, so I got this is our first ever session of a security alert of the week. Everything's of the week for us, Tim. And I want to show you an amazing email that I assume was AI generated. And I want to make sure our developers know that this type of fraud's coming for them, buddy. And holy crap, this one was good. So just click on these documents, either one of them. These documents are fake. Can you click on the image perfect. So these documents are fake documents. And it was an email that came to us. And if you zoom in, the only give is the email address. It's the extension, like the real address is
it's at mail.com.
Yes. the real email address for the town is the first half of the email, the cconc.ma.gov thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the only give.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the documents and the second page and everything, they use real information from the public forum because permits are publicly available.
Yeah, from
and
the public records, yeah.
Yeah, and the town meeting. So they took real information from the town meeting
And
filing.
they probably used AI to do it.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And they sent us an email and our payment.
Nice. Yeah, it's only $6,700, John. You won't mind paying that, right?
You want to hear the best part? The reason that we were suspicious of it is that zoning fees are only like usually $1,500 for this project,
Yeah.
a project this size. And so we were like 68. You know, if they hadn't been so greedy, they might have gotten $1,000 from us.
But imagine all the hundreds of contractors who've received this scam, right?
Yeah, dude.
They're just going through all the permits and sending messages to all the permit applicants. Holy moly.
All across the country, man. And every permit is publicly available. You set the robot to start looking. That's what's occurring right now, Tim. So please, contractors, tell your friends, double check that invoice from the Planning Commission. I mean, look at this document. It's even got a watermark. I mean, you know, Tim, one time I got defrauded. Craigslist. I was getting a new apartment and I happened to be traveling and I had a lot of stuff going on. And I'm just like, man, that apartment looks good. They're like, yeah, send the deposit. I was like, great, sent. And they're like, all right, now we need last month. I was like, all right, here you go. They gave me documents. They gave me like all the PDFs, the lease. It was perfect quality. They used DocuSign. It looked good, man. You know, these people, if they were in a real job, they'd be great workers. They don't make as much. They get paid crap. Instead, they get to steal $5,000 at a pop. But just, it's rough. It's rough. I don't know. You want one more story, Timothy? It's kind of time to go.
Yeah, let's do one more.
All right, here's a cool one. Are you familiar with Octopus Energy by any chance?
I am.
All right, so they're coming to the U.S. They're a UK company. They're in Texas these days.
We're talking about the solar power world?
Yes, the solar power portal.
Oh, solar power portal. British households earned 100 million pounds from solar in past year, Octopus says. Yes. Okay. I believe it.
This residential customers who are paid with how they do their energy via their Octopus Energy account. Now, I don't know exactly how it works, but you know, when you feed back, it's different than net metering. And somehow, you know, with Octopus, they say, don't run your electricity now or charge your car now. They give their customers, like, I love watching their little posts whenever they pop up. And when people celebrate, they're like, I just got paid $5 for filling up my car with electricity. And so that's what Octopus is giving home electricity users, kind of just more power to their thing. And because they're a big organization, I guess they also protect on the other side. You know, when prices spike, they have the ability to manage that on the other way because they own batteries. So it's just kind of neat. Home energy users are having a significant effect on the big power grid. And I think that's sweet. You know, it started in California with all that net metered solar. It's happening in Australia. So the duck curve in Australia is gone. And it's because of the big grid batteries. And over the last year, 500,000 residential batteries. Now, remember, Australia is 34 million people. So it's not the US, which is 10x. Yeah. So 500 million, there's only like 20 million households. So this is like 5%, I don't know, a quarter of 2.5%, whatever. A solid chunk have installed batteries and fundamentally altered their grid, which was fundamentally altered by solar. So we're moving beyond the solar thing. We're now moving into battery and intelligence. Like Octopus is showing the intelligence of the grid, the VPP, the distributed power, and batteries are just changing everything, man. So
yeah. And Octopus isn't a household name in the US yet, but it's going to be. It's coming to the US.
It's in Texas. They're doing this.
It's in Texas. They're coming to California. They're coming to a handful of markets. Yeah, they're a very modern utility. I don't know exactly how they frame themselves or IPP, um, but yeah, it's impressive. I don't quite understand what the business model is here. Do you though? How is Octopus using this excess solar electricity?
Well, I mean, they're probably selling it to other users somewhere. They're probably storing it in batteries. I mean, they figure out when to export it, maybe during high price times, because they definitely tell people to use less during high price times, and they definitely tell people to use more during low and negative price times.
Yeah,
So I'm certain that they have their equations. They have they have an energy trading desk. I mean, that's what they are. They have they have professionals who stare at what they got, stare at what the market wants, what they could have, and say, "All right, here's how I make an extra 10 grand this today and cover my office's costs." So they're just a big old power company, man. A distributed power company, plus other stuff. I'm sure. I don't know the whole of them, but they definitely got some distributed chops.
all right. Well, that's a wrap. We will be back on September 4th, I believe, in 2 weeks.
Number
We do
four.
this every 2 weeks on Friday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern. And you can check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Tell a friend about the show. That's the best thing you can do. The live broadcast is, we're dropping one of these every other week, but then there's lots of other interviews dropping once and sometimes twice a week. So check that out and connect with us in Vegas at RE Plus or RE Plus Midwest. So many opportunities to meet us face to face. John, how can our listeners find you?
CommercialSolarGuy.com. That's our website. I'm also on LinkedIn, Commercial Solar Guy, John Fitzgerald Weaver. Blue Sky as Commercial Solar Guy. That's the best place. Or you can come to Harvard, Cambridge, and I can buy you a beer.
All right. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks for being here, everybody. And I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. Take care.